welcome to another episode of the Brown and Black podcast. My name is Jack Rico.
And I'm Mike Sargent.
And every week we take a look at race and pop culture through a brown and black lens. So, Mike, this week has been an interesting week for me because as artists of color that we are, something happened, dude, that has put chills in my body of what will happen to the artist. So essentially, ChatGPT, and I'm sure everybody's heard of it, it's owned by a company called OpenAI, and they're always putting out these updates. One of the latest updates that they put out was this thing called the image editor. Now, these image editors are essentially these, dude, this is so new that it boggles the mind, but it's, you just put in a photo of something. And I think I showed you this week where I put a photo of us being on the Brown and Black TV show. And then I said, hey, can you please generate this into the style of a Lego character? Dude, and it was us in Lego form, but with the level of detail that I would have had to go and create the damn logo toy and put it together and ask for specific pieces and paint the skin color. And dude, it's something that would have taken me weeks, if not months. And this thing did it in seconds. And I sent it to you and you laughed. Because it's one of those things that makes you laugh. It's seeing you in a different way and something that you grew up with Lego. Dude, there's a nostalgic effect to that reaction. There's a sense of how cool this is and you want to keep on doing more photos. But there's a sinister side to all of this too, Mike. That as an artist, you start going, oh, wait a minute. And so as this is happening, Mike, I'm seeing my feed filled with these Studio Ghibli images. And it went viral. Variety picked it up. The New York Times ended up picking it up. And it was in this process that I said, oh, wow, it's the Studio Ghibli images from one of the great master icon animators in Hayao Miyazaki, who created this style. Spirited Away is probably one, if not the greatest animated film ever made. And as this is dropping on all the social media platforms, they're picking it up in Japan. People are now going, hey, I wonder how Miyazaki feels about this. And as we're seeing this go, there's this really contradictory moment for people.
More and more, I've been seeing friends post AI-generated art that looks like real photos turned into Studio Ghibli animation. And they're very cute. But as someone who's in the creative industry, it's really hard for me to just enjoy it for what it is. Because if I really get down to the nitty-gritty of what it is, it's doing something that others can do faster. And what's just fun for someone is making another person obsolete. And sending the subconscious message of, I don't need you. I actually admire the work that you're doing, but I don't want to pay you for it. There's that alternative thought of, what about those people who can't afford art? Then AI has the potential to give access to art that they maybe would not have been able to replicate themselves. But now we're living in a world where everyone could do everything on their own. Who needs an artist friend when you could just write something and it creates something for you? Adapting is part of evolution, but I hope that we could spend a little bit of time discerning whether this is really just for fun or actually something quite serious.
When those images from someone else are being used as a viral device, where no one is giving credit to Studio Ghibli, that no artists are getting paid, then who is the real author, Mike? Is it Studio Ghibli? Is it AI? Or is it the user? If AI can do what you do, and the audience loves it, then what happens to the value of the artists? Are they even necessary if a machine can replicate what you do, but make it accessible to the world?
Bingo. Not only is this a threat to artists, but it's a threat to creativity overall. Because to
Mm.
answer your question, the notion of copyright is going to completely change.
Yeah, it
Be-
has to, Mike.
exactly, because what OpenAI's defense was, and I'm going to quote, we primarily rely on publicly available information to teach our models how to be helpful. We train our models using select publicly available data, mostly collected from blah, 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 blah. Hold on a second. Publicly available data. If you really get down to it, and you know that what they're pushing now, you know that they're pushing the government saying that it's a matter of national security. We need access to copyrighted material. So basically, at a certain point, anything that you put out there, if you're an artist and you just put your art there, you put a poem, you put a drawing, that's publicly available, so we can take it. So if you show your art, period,
Yes.
you see what I'm saying? That's
Like
where
like
we're
like
headed.
like like the artist man, Mike, I think I have to say this, man, because I think it's like a reality that we have to say. Is the career of the artist in peril?
Is it? What do you mean, is it?
Bro, because they're still artists. They're still museums. You can still go in and watch a museum. So it's not, they didn't die today.
No, not
When
yet.
we no longer see an artist, when we no longer see a museum, when we no longer see anybody drawing anything because everybody's in a different career, when we see that, then art is dead. When we no longer see music being sung, when we no longer see actors acting, when we no longer see any art being done, then art is dead. What we're talking about here, Mike, is an evolution that is being forced upon the artist. And how does the artist feel about that? Dude, and this is the problem, man, is when you're an artist and living in a capitalistic system, bro, you become the hypocrite. But then you and I talked about the other way around, about how people don't give a fuck about the art anyway or the artist. And I think that there was this TikTok guy that you and I were talking about. I think this guy said it the best.
These Studio Ghibli AI images I keep seeing across my page are anti-art, they're slop, they're disgusting, they're garbage, I keep seeing them over and over again. You all don't care that your favorite artists actually hate them as well, and I often say this, people don't actually care about artists. They don't care about their thoughts, their motives, their intentions, how hard it is to create a piece of art. Oftentimes I think they don't actually care about the industry itself or the working conditions, they just want to consume and consume. I'll go as far as to say this, I don't actually think most people care about the art itself. It is wild to me the number of people that engage with Studio Ghibli films and just say, oh, it's just an aesthetic, that's all it is, and they completely miss the point of nearly every single piece of film that they come across.
I have to push back on a couple things that you said, Jack, because yes, there's definitely a relationship between art and commerce. And I don't know what your definition of artist is completely. I know what mine is. I went to art high school, art college. Most of my friends are artists. My dad's an artist. I'm an artist. I consider myself to be an artist first, other things beyond that. And I bring my creativity to other endeavors. But at the end of the day, we don't live in a society where people barter. I used to have a friend who would joke that he'd like to give a painting to his landlord for rent. Okay. That's not
Currency, but to the artist, that's currency.
no, not any artist that's living today. That would be great, but that's not the way it is. The reality is, even in Europe, there would be no Renaissance without the Medicis. There had to be patrons for the art because art in itself, I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard, and any art teacher listening has heard, most of the time, the parents of a budding artist will say, hey, it's nice that you want to do whatever it is, but you need to make sure you have something to quote unquote fall back on, something real. And that's in the best case scenario if they still let you do your art, because there's always been this thinking that you can't make a living as an artist. You're going to be starving if you just do your art. And many people have spent their lives pursuing whatever it is, their dream, and not getting there, and didn't live a life they could have lived because they were going after what they thought they could live. And so the life of the artist has always been hard in the society, even more so in a capitalist society, because capitalism, let's basic, it's exploitation. But where we are right now, you're right. This is an inflection point. This is a
Mhm.
point where You asked before the relationship between the public and the artist. At the end of the day, capitalism, if the capitalism is top of that pyramid and they're looking at the artist and looking at the public and the artist feeds the public, but if the public is willing to be fed by AI art, great. That just means they can keep more. There's no copyright. What's to stop me from making a Studio Ghibli porno movie?
Yeah. Did you see the 9/11 ones?
No.
Come
What's the
on, man.
no?
Oh, dude, the World Trade Center on fire.
Of
Like they
Studio
crossed the
Ghibli
bound.
style? Oh,
Yeah,
see,
dude.
that doesn't surprise me.
They crossed the boundaries, and I'm sure that Hayao Miyazaki would not want his animation to be associated in that way. So this is the problem of OpenAI allowing this to happen. And by the way, there's a reason why they're getting away with it, and that legally they cannot be charged about this. And I think most people don't know that. Is that the reason that they could do this is because Studio Ghibli, for some weird reason in Japan, dude, their copyright law is the only one in the world that allows AI to train for nonprofit and commercial purposes. So if you're a Japanese artist, you're fucked.
And that's exactly what Google and OpenAI are asking.
Exploiting. They're
No,
exploiting
they're
it.
exploiting it there, but that's what they're asking the government to allow them to do right now. Google and OpenAI are pushing the U.S. government right now to allow their AI models to train on copyrighted material. They argue that it's, like I said, a matter of national security. Meanwhile, Trump's got this thing called the AI Action Plan that's supposed to, quote unquote,
enhance America's position as an AI powerhouse.
So it's like a battle. If we don't do it, they will, and they'll have better AI than us.
Look, I think you said it best of where we are at this stage. We are at an inflection point. Something has to be done. This is not sustainable for the artist because of the rebellion of it. And you don't want that community that is creating your TV shows, that is creating all the art that you enjoy, all the art, the artist. You don't want to have them as your enemies either. And you don't want to have them so poor that they can't. While this oligarchy is like, yeah, this is great. It's unsustainable. Why don't you just have AI create all the art? You're going to tell me that a business person is also saying to themselves, yeah, man, just because I can prompt it and it'll give me this, I can use that as the next poster for my big blockbuster movie?
Yep. Yes, I do.
No.
Yes.
No,
Yes,
no,
I do. Yes.
No.
Yes,
no.
I do. Yes. Yes, I do.
What I'm getting at is not hiring one single human being and having, I don't know, man, like the executive producer just sit by himself on a computer and make the whole movie. Like, that's the part that I'm like, wait a minute, it can't get to that point. Or can it?
I think it'll get to a point where just like they legalize marijuana and all of a sudden a bud tender it's a thing. Like, hey, you're a bud tender. You're working in like being a bartender, you're a bud tender. Being someone who creates prompts, if you can get rid of 30 artists and you have one guy who sits there or two people who sit there and create the prompts, and then it gets looked at by the executive producer. Oh, okay, great. Fix this, fix that. And they just know how to talk to the AI. Yes, that's exactly where we're headed. We won't get rid of everybody. There was a time where there were lots of people who made horseshoes, but they aren't as many anymore.
Dude, can you do me a favor? Because I think that in order to really, really have this conversation, we really have to define what artist means today. Because look, art in its basic fundamental origins was always a calling. It was something that came from your soul. You had to paint. You had to paint it. But now art has become a hustle. It's what is the algorithm saying and how do we create art for that? No one can come in and buy a $2 million Van Gogh. So I feel like with the creator economy, I feel like with the rise of the influencer, with now technology and prompt engineering creating art, what is an artist? Is it a content creator? Is it still the guy who puts paint on a canvas and puts it up in a museum? Because to me, that's what an artist is. My first definition would be that of a painter, an artist. My second definition for an artist would be a stage performer musician. Prince, Michael Jackson, they're an artist. After that, it gets muddled for me.
I'm glad we're having this conversation because that is a primary thing. You mentioned earlier about evolution. Technology drives evolution, but culture drives evolution too, the evolution of, let's say, that definition. Because there was a time where if you were a DJ or you were someone who created samples, that's not art. You're just using samples. That's not art. People who were actual musicians did not consider people who did sampling doing art.
But that is art, though.
But see, it is now.
It is now. Exactly.
It
So
is
there's this
now.
evolution thing
That's
that has to be taken into consideration.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So those prompt engineers, right now, eventually you could be an award-winning. This prompt engineer won an Oscar for the prompt engineer. He gets the Oscar for the prompt engineer of the year.
I know you're joking,
But
fuck, that could be a reality.
dude, listen, this technology is going to change everything about everything. Let me give you another example, okay, that you may or may not know about. There's a movie coming out called Watch the Skies, right? Now, we'd all heard some of the controversy where, I believe it was The Brutalist, where they
Yeah, and Amelia Perez as well.
right, where they fixed some of the accent. Do you know about Watch the Skies? What Watch the Skies did, there's this technology from this company called TrueSync. Watch the Skies is a foreign film. It's a Swedish film. But they got the English dubbing via AI, and the AI goes in and fix the mouths of the actors so that when they're speaking English, it looks like they're speaking English. Just think about all the foreign movies that eventually will have AI dubbing.
Bro, the career of the voice actor is over.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
It's over.
Exactly.
There's this app called 11 Labs.
Mm-hmm.
They are it. That's it. And I've played with some other voiceovers, man. Yo, it is creepily human. That actually scares the fuck out of me. That's where we're headed to, where you can't even tell a human being apart. Dude, and I feel, I mean, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but all those older people that expect their son to call them and it's an AI voice and they're trying to get scammed.
Yeah.
So we have to fix all of these laws, man, because I understand that for the regular fan, this shit is a lot of fun. And Mike, I'm willing to walk that tightrope and say, I do have mixed feelings about this. This shit made me happy, dude. This shit made me happy. When I was like playing with the Lego thing and then seeing all the other videos of the other stuff, that was making me happy, smiling. I'm like, oh my God. I was showing it to my wife. We were doing like these pictures we did a long time ago. And you saw them from a new perspective, which is an appreciation for the art. But I'm also echoing this other guy is that we've also gotten to a point we don't care about what the artist thinks. We just love the aesthetic.
We like the dopamine rush.
We like it. We are drawn and addicted to the algorithm. And if the algorithm gives us this, what does art mean within the algorithm? In real life, you can take art and take it to a museum. That still exists. But once you drop art into the algorithm, bro, you're in the Wild Wild West. That shit is space. It's, what do they call the Star Trek? It's a new frontier.
Yes, it is. Something else you're touching upon there that I think is important, coming back to the defining of the artist and defining what is art. There are a lot of apps that will say, take a photo of you and turn it into a Rembrandt. Okay, so you've imitated art. And the imitated art, we'll print it on a canvas for you and have it printed up and you can have it on your wall. There is always, especially in a capitalist society where we are in capitalistopia today, there's always going to be the art for the masses, and then there's going to be the art for those who can afford something else. You could buy one kind of car, you could buy this other kind of car.
Right.
So yes.
Art works the same way.
Art works the same way, but also coming back to art. And this comes back to what really affects brown and black people. What is art? What art is of value? What art is worth calling art? What art?
Yes.
What
quality.
art? Quality. You know, you mentioned you can go see it in a museum. what makes a museum?
I'll tell you, curation.
Exactly. Now, who is that curator? We have individual algorithms, but we also have an algorithm of our culture that tells us what to buy, how to buy it. And there are people who are controlling that algorithm.
It's called marketing, commercials,
Yes.
propaganda, media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, who is going to be telling us what is art and what is worth pursuing and what are worth buying and what are we used to? If every Marvel movie has an AI poster, how would we know the difference?
Okay, so then, Mike, you're not going to stop OpenAI with a lawsuit? You're not going to tell Elon Musk to step down from being the techno bro of President Trump? You're not going to stop the most powerful people right now on the planet, some of the most richest people on the planet. You're not going to tell them, hey, can you kind of just tone it down, please, for the artist?
What do you mean
That's
I'm
not
not going
gonna-
to do that? Yes, I am. And I'll use a different voice, though. Look, tone it down for the.
I mean, there comes a point where you just say, look, I'm going to have to work with what's here. So if AI has come here and you are an artist, my question is, do you surrender to the fact that this disruption is now one that you must adapt to if you're going to survive? Or are you going to take the stance of, I'm not going to engage and I'm going to be like a loner for the rest of my life? And I don't think that's a great contribution to society anyway.
Unfortunately, all art, all forms of art at some point become obsolete. Does the artist become obsolete or does the artist evolve with the taste in society? If nobody's buying a certain kind of art, abstract art anymore, even the millionaires aren't buying it. But pop art has become popular because of Andy Warhol. So now what do?
Right. That used to be the AI art of its day.
Yes, it was. He was just taking what pre-existed and repurposing it. People said it wasn't art because he's just taking Campbell's soup. That's not art. Now, to the next part I was going to talk about. There's more than one kind of artist. There's plenty, but there are two main artists. There's what you call that artist, the painter, the this, the that, the writer. But then there's the commercial artist. That's someone who has found a way to make a living doing quote unquote commercial art that they're going to get paid for. It might be designing ads for pharmaceuticals. It might be creating statues for whatever. Being a commercial artist, the question then is, what would that person who does the prompts, are they an artist? Are they a commercial artist? Would they consider themselves to be a commercial artist and not quibble about it? And the other thing that you mentioned here that I have to touch upon is at a certain point, if you become successful, are you selling out?
Of course you are. But it goes back down to what do we define as an artist that you, because if we don't know, then what are you betraying?
Okay. My definition of an artist is someone who has the ability to express themselves in an artistic medium. I believe that you could be Miles Davis. He could play his instrument great, but he also painted. The paintings may not be as well known, but to me, he's an artist. He has found a way to express himself in a medium. So my definition of an artist is someone who is able to express themselves in a medium. Not someone who's creative and they can do doodles, but someone who's literally able to express themselves in some artistic medium.
So now that we have like this definition that you and I have of what the artist is, right? Would a content creator and an influencer fit into those definitions today in 2025?
Now, see, that's where we get into an area that you hate. We're getting into the gray area here. See, content creator. I feel that is like the word love. It's thrown around. And like the word art, it's thrown around and it's applied to things that don't deserve it. So not all content creators are artists. No, some are. And those generally are the ones that rise to the top. But you can be a content creator and all you do is, shake your boobs. And that's what you do. And you call yourself a content creator. The question comes back to something you were saying before, the relationship between the artist and the public. You're doing this thing but do people feel it's art? And then the other part of that is you can be doing what you think is great art and nobody likes it. Nobody cares. Are you still an
Mm.
artist? Are you still an artist?
That's an interesting point. Like the two arguments that we're really looking at here is that the old definition of the artist and what a content creator does and what a remixer artist does and what a prompt engineer does when he specifically puts all in the right words to have this thing put out something of beauty that it couldn't come up with itself. It had to be told what to put out. So that prompt engineer might call himself a fucking artist. And I think that when you're looking at all of these definitions and what it looks like, it's all within a system of capitalism,
Yes.
of consumption.
Yes.
And that's where these things
Yes.
between art and commerce becomes a complicated conversation of no, you are not right and you guys are not right. But this thing has to be sustainable. If we're going to have artists, which I think we should, Mike, especially the brown and black artists, which create and shape the culture, we define the culture. We had this conversation yesterday. If the black artist within the digital sphere does not have the freedom to be able to create art because it's constantly being stole, it's constantly being appropriated, like with Miyazaki, because you could call this the greatest cultural appropriation in like digital history, what happened to him. If we lose the ability to have that black and Latino artist offer his art, like a Bad Bunny creating an album, but instead AI just duplicates it, or the photographs of Gordon Parks, if those are created by AI, it really puts a situation where what do we become? Do we have to change careers? Or, and this is where I'm going with this, Mike, do we have to change the fucking laws? Because I don't think that the laws can protect the artist any longer.
I think that the laws have barely protected the artist in all this time. But yes, I 1000% agree. Because what that does is it devalues. You mentioned Gordon Parks. Yeah. If I say, show me a picture of me and Jack walking down the street in Harlem in 1954 in the style of Gordon Parks, and it gives us a photo, after a while, just like Miyazaki's style, it's just another
Generic.
prompt. It's generic.
It's generic.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
you devalue the art of the artist.
100%.
But the complicated shit is that you just provided pleasure for the consumer, which is the whole purpose of the art. Mike, let me ask you this. I do have a problem when an artist says that I'm not allowed to interpret the art the way I should emotionally or spiritually. When they want to control the way I interpret that, that's when I have a problem. And in my head, it really does become about what do you do when the consumer buys your art at the store. Let's say I spend $1 million on it. Then I go home and I just start cutting it, throwing spaghetti on it. Then I call the artist and put him on an iPhone. I go, look what I'm doing to your art that I bought for $1 million. Now, the artist is going to be like, I hate what you're doing. You're not supposed to do that. Or are they like, fuck it, I don't care. You paid me my $1 million. Do with whatever you want with it.
That's exactly what they'll say. Because at a certain point, yes, it's up to the consumer to do whatever they want to do with that art. But the real issue to me is what you were starting to say, like, what do we do? Like AI versus artistic agency. If you no longer have the agency as an artist to control what happens to your work, as soon as you post it, someone could start repeating it and replicating it, and then boom, it's over. But you're not of value anymore because now your style can be copied. Furniture, let's just use as an example. There's some really expensive furniture you can buy, but then there's always that knockoff that looks just like it, but it only costs $50. So imitation of great art has always existed. AI just makes it instantaneous.
Right. And ultimately, I think that as we start understanding more and more how we really don't have any control of how our art is handled as soon as it reaches a public platform,
Publicly available data.
as soon as that shit is open source, let's just call it that,
Mm-hmm.
your art is no longer what you created. that is a whole other clone of what your art is. Live with that. Know that when somebody makes a remake of the original masterpiece, that shit didn't destroy the masterpiece. It's a clone. It's a duplicate. That's what it is. But I think that the real revolution for the artist today is in protecting their IP, in changing the law in Japan so Miyazaki doesn't have to go through this shit ever again. That the whole world has some global AI act that protects the artist. And once we have leaders that respect the artists, that dignify the artists, that value the contributions to the artist on a physical and spiritual level, Mike, this is when art will flourish. This is when it would live in harmony with society. And until we reach that, dude, the artist is in peril. That's it for this episode of Brown and Black. And if you would like to support this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. Your help will allow us to be heard by many more people. You can follow our comments and opinions on @BrownBlack Podcast on Instagram and on YouTube. We'll see you on the next episode of Brown and Black.